Okay, this is going to be an interesting section. It's the last section in this unit. The I can statement is I can compute surface area of rectangular and triangular prisms. Now, in the last unit we talked about volume, and volume usually is more complicated. But in this particular case, when we start talking about computing surface area, there's quite a bit more going on than when we were dealing with composite areas or volume of prisms and different things like that. So the warm-up here, just to kind of remind ourselves, find the volume of the following figures. Be sure to show your work. So on this problem right here, it's a rectangular prism. So we find the area of the base and multiply it by its height. Again, with a rectangular prism, that ends up being the length times the width times the height. So we'll call this the length and this the width. And then sometimes it gets a little bit confusing. It might look like that 7 belongs right here. You kind of have to follow along and say, well, this is 4 yards, that's 4 yards, that's 4 yards, and that side right there is 4. The 7 refers to this kind of vertical side here, vertical side there, and so forth. So we're going to do 4 times 5. That's the area of the base, and then we're going to multiply it by 7 for the height. So this is going to be 20 times 7, so this is going to be 140. Don't forget the units on here. Again, we'd have yards times yard times yards, so we end up with yards cubed or cubic yards. And then over on this one, again, the base is right here. It's this triangular shape here, and again, we could draw a slice that's parallel to that. It's the same triangle going all the way up, so we know we've got the right base here. So again, the volume is the area of the base times the height. In this particular case, because the triangle is the base, the formula for that area is going to be 1/2 of kind of the base, lowercase b if you want to think of it that way, and then that would be the height. So this is going to be 10 times 4. And then the height of the whole thing, just like this one over here, happens to be 7. So we're going to multiply these together. We're going to cancel there. That's going to be a 5. That's going to be 20 times 7. So we end up with 140, and these are all yards, so this is also yards cubed. Now you might notice that what we've got here is an answer of 140 square yards for that one and 140 square yards for that one, but they are completely different shapes. Okay, you'll notice that the dimensions here, this was 4 by 5 by 7, and this was 4 by 10 by 7. And again, by having that triangle right there, it cuts down the area of the base by 1/2. So these do have exactly the same area. Just kind of wanted to show you on that one right there. Now, there are lots of problems that are easier when you break a big problem down into a small problem. And mathematicians do this quite often. It's a really good thinking skill in a lot of different areas. So when we compute volume, we build up the from the area of the base. So we know what that area of the base is, and then again, that whole idea of figuring out how tall we can stack them. Now, with surface area, which is what we're going to be talking about today. With surface area, we're going to be breaking the prism apart. So we're going to take that prism, and again, we're going to find the area of all the faces. So we're going to find the area of all the faces of the figure and then add them all up. So we kind of have to identify what the faces look like, and then we'll go through and we'll add them up. And it can actually be really helpful if we draw something called a net. Now, you may be familiar with what a net is. A lot of times they'll show you a net of how you could of a figure, and then you've got to kind of construct it. We're going to be doing the opposite. And doing the opposite means this. What we're going to think of is it's kind of like taking a can opener and cutting the figure open and laying it perfectly flat. Because remember, when we're talking about area, we're talking about flat surface. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a can opener, and we're going to cut along the top right here and right here and right here. Then we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. So since I left kind of a hinge piece right there, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to cut along there and cut along there and cut along there. Now, if you were in class, I would probably have a big cardboard box and we'd actually physically do this. So what's going to happen is the top can now flop open and the bottom can flop down. And we've got this kind of these sides that are all still connected. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut those apart. So we're going to draw a cut right there, and we're going to cut that apart. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to end up with that rectangular top is going to end up right here. that rectangular, whoops, let me make some better space for this. So the rectangular top is going to end up right here. So this is 4 by 5. That rectangular bottom is going to end up down here, and notice that they're exactly the same size. So this is going to be 4 and this is going to be 5. Now the hinge piece right here is the back part of that, so I'm going to draw that here. We cut along here, so I'm going to flop this kind of left side open right here. It looks like this. And then we've got the back, and then the right side looks like this, and then the front will finally flop open. Now, if you look at this, we've actually got 6 sides here, 6 faces. We've got a top and a bottom, we've got a front and a back, and we've got a left and a right. So we've got 6 faces that we need to worry about finding the area for. We'll take a look at what we've got here, top and a bottom. Okay, this happens to be the back, and then this is the left and this is the right, and then this would be the front right here. So I'm going to label those top and bottom. This is the back, this is the front, and this is the left, and this is the right. Okay, so if we take that and we cut it apart, and again, sometimes physically doing this can be really helpful. Now, this area would be easy to find because we know that's 5 by 4, and it's the same thing as the bottom, so that would be great. But then the problem becomes figuring out how long are each one of these sides and the height and all that sort of stuff. So let's come back up here. I'm going to go ahead and erase this, and I want you to think of what's going on here. So when we took the top and folded it up, that 4 is kind of sitting right here. It kind of swung open like that. So if this is 4, it's got to be right next to a 4. And if this is 4, straight across from it's got to be a 4. So that's got to be 4. And that happens to be the top of this side right here. So that's going to be a 4. Transfer this straight down. This is going to be a 5. So notice what I've got here. I've got a 4 and a 5 and a 4. Well, the front and the back have to match, so that's got to be a 5. So I've got 4 and 5 and 4 and 5. Now the question is, how tall is this? And come up here, the only measurement we haven't used so far is the 7. So if I were to clean this up, here's kind of what I'm looking at, and I'm going to make some dotted lines right here to make this maybe a little bit easier. Okay, we're looking at finding this big rectangle in the middle, and then 2 of these guys, a top and a bottom. So I have 2 of the 4 times the 5, and I have 1 big gigantic rectangle in the middle. Okay, so I have 1, and I'm going to make that an arrow. 1 that is, okay, so it's 7 units tall. How far is it from here to here? Well, 4 plus 5 is 9. And let's see, another 9, so this is going to be 18. So 18 times 18 times 7. So if I were to multiply those two together, that's going to give me the area of the side. Sometimes we call that lateral area. And then I've got 2 of these guys right here. So this is going to be 2 times 20. So I've got 40 right there. I'll put a dotted circle around that one. Okay. And then I've got 18 times 7. Let me think here. I think that's about 100 and what do we got here? 56. Yep. So this would be 126. Better double check that. Okay. Let's pull up the calculator. Let's see. Clear this off, and we've got 18 times 7. Especially if this were a test, we'd want to double check. So when we add those two together, we're going to end up with 166. And again, these were yards, so this would be square yards. And again, the way we got that is we did the 40 plus the 126. So this is top and the bottom, and these are the sides. Now, this can be a little bit tricky, so this is something that you're going to need to practice. But I think once you do, you're going to catch on to this pretty quickly. So I'm going to do one more example, and then we'll do a couple from the assignment. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to cut this with a can opener. I'm going to cut along here and along there. I'm going to leave that long hinge part on the front. So I'm going to cut along here and along there, and then I'm going to cut along the back. So here's what we end up with. I'm going to draw the front right here. Okay, so there's the front. The top is going to be a triangle. It's going to be sitting up like this. The bottom, if we let that flop open, it's going to be sitting down like this. So here's that right side right here. It looks like this. And here's this left side. It looks like that. Now, we do have the measurements for this right here. This is 10, this is 5, and this is 8. So stop and think about it. These two have to come together to make that edge. So if this is 5, that's got to be 5. Kind of like if that was 4, that was 4. Same thing on the other side. So if this is 8, that's 8. So this is 8, this is 10, and this is 5. This is 8 and this is 5. Getting a little carried away with the measurements here, but that's okay. And then we want to know how tall it is. So this is 7, that's 7, that's 7, and that's 7. So what we've got here is we've got two triangles that are exactly the same, two of those, and then we've got a big long rectangle. Now this is 10 wide and 4 tall. So this is going to be 1/2 of the base times the height. And we've got two of those. So those are going to cancel. So if we multiply those together, that's going to be 40. And then this is going to be, let's see, remember that's 7 tall. And then we've got 5 plus 10 is 15, plus another 8, that's going to be 23. So we're going to multiply those together. So 7 times 23 is going to end up being 161. I think we got 161 there. So we're going to take the 161 plus the 40, and we end up with 201 square yards. 201 square yards. Okay, that gives you the bulk of how to do these. And again, these can be long, they can be a little bit on the tedious side. And again, drawing these nets is not something that most people are really good at naturally, so it's going to take a little bit of effort in order to do that. But what I do want you to notice is that you always end up with a rectangle for the sides. Notice these sides still, even though it was a triangular prism, it ended up being a rectangle. Just 3 rectangles added together rather than 4. And then we're going to have a top and bottom. If it's a rectangular prism, both of those are going to be rectangles. If it's a triangular prism, both of those are going to be triangles. So let's take a look at this one really quickly. You'll notice that this one is kind of tilted on its side. So here's what I'm going to do. There's not really a best way to kind of orient this. So I'm going to cut it along here, here, and here, 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 and here. And then I'm going to cut it right there. Okay? So the cool part about this is I can, because I know this is going to look like this, I can just go ahead and draw. It kind of looks like a cross tilted on its side. Okay? And then we're going to have these guys right here. So you'll notice I made this cut right here. That would be this one right here. So this is going to be 8 by 12. So that's 8 by 12. And remember, if this is 8, that's got to be 8. And if this is 8, that's got to be 8. So that's got to be 8. And then you'll notice that we didn't use this 12 right here. So we've got 8 and 12, 8 and 12. So this has got to be 12. Okay. And then how tall is it? This is how long this cut is right here, so that's going to be 9. So here's what we have. We've got a top that's 8 by 12. That's the bottom. That's also 8 by 12. And then we've got all of those sides that happen to be, let's see, 9 tall, and then let's add these up. This is going to be 20 plus another 20, so this is 40. Okay, so we've got the top, we've got the bottom, and then we've got the sides. Now I'm going to change colors to write these down. When we multiply these together, we get 96 for this, 96 for this. So we're going to have 2 times 96, and when you multiply those together, you get 360. So we're going to add that 360. So let's see what we get here. If we do 2 times 96, oops, 2 times 96 plus 360, and we end up with 552. So 552, and again this is area, so this is going to be centimeters squared. Okay, now I do want to mention this. Some people will go through here and they'll look at this and say, you know, I have a really hard time drawing these nets, so that's a real struggle for me. So what they'll do is they'll do this, and I'm going to use 3 different colors. they'll say, look, I'm going to figure out that. So this is 8 by 12. And you just know that you have two of those. So that takes care of this one and this one. And then they say, okay, I've got this side right here. That's a copy of this side right here, that one back there. So I've got two of them that are, if we take a look at that, that's going to be 8 by 9. Got two of those. So that takes care of kind of the top and the bottom and the left and the right. And then we've got this front face right here and the back face that are both the same. So I'm going to draw that. So that's this one and then this one right here. So that one is, let's see, so that front one, again, no matter what you do here, sometimes this can be a little bit confusing. So I'm going to draw this over here, and we've got two of those. So this is going to be, let's see, 8 times 12, so this is going to be 96. Oops, and I'll change colors here. So this is going to be 96, and I've got two of those. This is going to be 72, and I've got two of those. 72, and then this is going to be, let's see if I multiply those together, that's going to be 108. So what I'd have here is I'd have 2 times 96 plus 2 times 72 plus 2 times 108. So let's see if we get the same thing. We better get 552, otherwise we've done something wrong. So we've got 2 times 96. Again, no shortcut around these. These just take some time to get right. 2 times 72 plus 2 times 108. Hit enter, there's our 552, so we know we got it right. So if you like that a little bit better, that's totally okay. I would encourage you to, on at least half of these, try doing it with the nets and see if you can figure it out that way. Okay, last one here. Let's take a look at this. This is kind of tilted on its side, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to cut this open like this, and then along there. So again, we're going to have a rectangle in the middle for the sides, and then we're going to have a triangle that looks like this. Okay. And that's going to happen every single time. Rectangle down the middle, triangles on the top and bottom, rectangle in the middle, rectangles on the top and bottom with these rectangular prisms here and up here. So let's see if we can get this right here. Let's see, this is all of those sides right there, so every one of these is 11. Okay. We've got a triangle here that is, and we left it attached at the 3, so this is going to be 3 and 3. And gosh, we probably should have made this look a little bit better, kind of like that, since we've got that right angle there. This is 5 and this is 5, okay, because there's that one right there. And then this one's that side that's right next to that cut there. And then we just go and fill in the pieces. So if this is 4, that's got to be 4. That's got to be 4. If this is 5, these are going to have to fold next to each other, so that's going to be 5 and that's going to be 5. Again, it takes a lot of practice to get used to doing these. We've got that nice right angle there. So we've got a right triangle that is 4 by 3, and we've got two of those. So I'm going to do another right triangle, or tell you what, I'll even do it this way. 4 by 3, and then we've got this big long rectangle. So I've added a page so I can slide this up here. So that big long rectangle is 11 by, let's add these together, that would be 8 and 4, so that's going to be 12. So we're going to get, let's see, what do we got there, 132, yep, 132, and then we've got 1/2 of the base times the height, which is 3, but then we've got 2 of those, so those cancel, so this is going to end up being 12 here plus 132, so 132 plus 12, and we end up with 144, and these would be square inches, okay? All right. Again, lots to practice here, lots of different ways to think about and to do these. These are really good for kind of working out your brain in a way that doesn't typically happen. So good luck with that, and then we'll get you ready for the test.